You're watching Phantom Astronaut's Night Terrors, where the shadows of history and legend converge into tales that chill the soul. Tonight we journey to the dark forests of Alsace in France, where the legend of Hans Trapp, a man twisted by greed, banished by the church, and condemned to stalk the winters in search of prey, takes form. This is a story of arrogance, punishment, and terror, retold with all the unsettling detail that folklore demands. If you enjoy these deep dives into the eerie and unknown, remember to like, share, and subscribe to help our channel grow. Check the links in the description for more ways to support us. Now, settle in for the sinister tale of Hans Trapp. The forests around Wissembourg were dark even in the heart of summer, their dense canopies blotting out the sun. In winter, under the heavy hand of December, those woods became something else entirely. The locals called them cursed, their tall pines casting skeletal shadows that seemed to twist and shift when you weren't looking. It was in those woods, they said, that Hans Trapp had made his home, and it was there that he waited. The story of Hans Trapp was an old one, whispered in hushed tones by firesides as the wind howled outside. He had once been a wealthy man, a landowner with a castle perched high on the hill, its towers scraping the sky. But Hans had not been content with mere wealth. His greed was insatiable, his appetite for power unrelenting. He was rumored to have dabbled in the dark arts, striking bargains with forces no man had any business trifling with. The church had taken notice. Accusations of heresy, of devil worship, were leveled against him. Stripped of his lands, his titles, and his fortune, Hans Trapp was cast out, his name cursed, his soul damned. But he didn't die, not really. Banished to the forest, he became something else. The villagers spoke of his transformation with dread. His once proud frame had become gaunt, his eyes sunken and feral. He wore rags, his clothes little more than patches, stitched together with sinew and spite. And his hunger. Oh, his hunger. They said it was unnatural, that no earthly food could satisfy him. So, he turned to something else, something darker. He began hunting children. It started with whispers, rumors of small footprints leading into the woods, of laughter carried on the wind, and then silence. When the first child disappeared, the villagers were terrified, but hopeful. It could be wolves, perhaps. When the second vanished, hope turned to dread. By the third, the legend of Hans Trapp was no longer a story. It was a warning. That winter, no child was allowed outside after dark. Families bolted their doors and windows, the firelight casting trembling shadows across their walls. But the forest was always there, a black expanse waiting just beyond the safety of their homes. And Hans Trapp was waiting too. The night Marie Weiss disappeared was colder than the villagers had ever known. The air seemed to freeze in their lungs, and the snow crunched like brittle glass beneath their feet. Marie was only 9, a lively girl with hair the color of chestnuts and a laugh that could chase away even the darkest clouds. She'd gone to fetch water from the well at twilight, a chore she had done 100 times before. But when she didn't return, her parents knew something was terribly wrong. A search party was formed, men and women armed with torches and pitchforks, their faces pale and drawn. They scoured the village, calling her name, their voices echoing into the silence. But it was the footprints that led them to the edge of the forest. Small, delicate imprints in the snow, too close together to be anything but a child's. And beside them, larger prints, heavy and deliberate, the snow compressed into deep, foreboding depressions. No one wanted to enter the forest. The trees stood like sentinels, their branches entwined, as though conspiring to keep the villagers out. But Marie's father, Matthias, refused to wait. He gripped his torch tightly, his knuckles white, and plunged into the woods, the others trailing reluctantly behind. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. The wind, which had howled so fiercely in the village, was muffled here, the trees swallowing every sound. The snow seemed to absorb their footsteps, and the darkness pressed against them like a living thing. "Marie!" Matthias called, his voice cracking. The only answer was the groan of the trees swaying in the wind. They found her in a clearing, her small body lying limp in the snow. For one terrible moment, Matthias thought she was dead. But as he dropped to his knees, his shaking hands brushing her face, her eyes fluttered open. She gasped, her breath a cloud in the freezing air. "He's coming," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "He's coming for me." The villagers froze, their torches casting long, flickering shadows. And then, from the darkness beyond the clearing, they heard it. A low, guttural growl that made their blood run cold. It wasn't a wolf. It wasn't any animal they had ever heard. It was something else, something that didn't belong. The growl became a laugh, deep and resonant, echoing through the trees. The villagers turned as one, their torches shaking, their breath coming in panicked gasps. At the edge of the clearing, something moved, a shadow, impossibly tall, its form hunched and misshapen. The torchlight caught the glint of its eyes, hollow and burning with an unholy fire. Hans Trapp stepped into the light. His face was a mask of decay, his skin stretched tight over his skull. His clothes were filthy, his frame skeletal, but his movements were quick, predatory. He carried a staff, gnarled and twisted, its tip blackened as though it had been thrust into the heart of a fire. And his eyes, they were filled with hunger, an insatiable, monstrous craving. The villagers didn't wait. They grabbed Marie and ran, their torches bobbing wildly as they stumbled through the snow. Behind them, Hans Trapp's laughter echoed, growing louder, closer. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees bending and twisting as though trying to trap them. They burst from the woods just as dawn broke, the pale light spilling across the snow. Hans Trapp didn't follow. He stood at the edge of the forest, his form dark against the rising sun, his laughter fading into the wind. Marie survived, but she was never the same. She spoke little of what had happened, but at night she would wake screaming, her hands clutching at the blankets, as though warding off some unseen horror. And the villagers? They never ventured into the forest again, not even in daylight. Hans Trapp became a legend, a warning whispered to children on cold winter nights. "Be good," the parents said, or Hans Trapp will come for you. And in the darkest corners of the forest, where the light never reached, his shadow still lingered, waiting for the next child to wander too far. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey into the legend of Hans Trapp. If tonight's episode of Phantom Astronaut's Night Terrors left you uneasy, remember to like, share, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Don't forget to check the links in the description for more ways to support us. This has been Phantom Astronauts Nocturnal Tales. I'll see you out there.